procedural matters of council.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
How do we stop it?
Like now.
So don't ask questions you can't
Put a bag over it.
When we first went to computers at BFC, so you just couldn't get used to it. Jammed up, you just go over.
I think we should get a sheet. I'll be so far away.
Sort of used to
They do some sleep.
Still trying to get used to the chair, because it's got a bit close up as well.
My eyebrows are good, right? What do you do about that? Fairly fair.
Put a word together.
So if there's a paint addition.
We're doing black line marking down
Thanks
there.
Thanks for the trailer. Have a great weekend.
Good.
He's had my third vaccines today.
Did you?
So didn't affect me at all.
Thanks, everybody. Welcome along to February's council meeting. And we have apologies from Councillor Degrassi, and we have Councillor Williams who's an approved leave of absence. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Can I ask from the council have reviewed the agenda?
13.1, read Sorell Creek Club.
And thank you, we have received the form indicating that Councillor Jackson, thank you. Confirmation of the minutes, 18th of January 2022, moved and seconded. Mr. Reid and Councillor Nichols, thank you. Is there any questions, comments or corrections? Not, I shall ask for show of hands for them to be passed. All in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. 5.0 is the Mayor's report. Move the second Scotland, Councillor Jackson, Deputy Mayor. And invite any questions or comments. Councillor Reid.
The COVID recovery groups, if you could perhaps give an outline of the key points there.
There is no real key points at the moment. We have had a couple of successes before Christmas on more so along the lines that a big argument from all three groups was for partnerships with community champions, like we've got the Salvos here in the southeast that do a good job, and to recognise those types of groups in each area so that they could be more responsive to work with mental health and other government departments in relation to COVID or any other disasters that come up, or viruses and things like that. So they received, there's been a couple of people picked for some funding to rationalise, instead of handing out a lot of funding to a lot of different groups, to be a little bit more specific. So there's been a couple of sensible discussion points and outcomes from that. Other than that, we met recently, the chairs met recently to discuss where to from now, because the development of a lot of the things we've been talking about with mental health and recovery seemed more to do with COVID than what it was to do with the PESRAC report that was originally started for. So we have a meeting planned as of today for March to discuss what the government would like us to focus on to give feedback to over the next 3 to 6 months. But really nothing's happened for the last 3 months.
Thank you.
Through the chair, could you just give us a bit of an update about the meeting with the Sorell Football Club and progress from that?
I guess I can, so it was in the same room an hour ago.
Okay.
We are working through with the Sorell Football Club to tidy up the exchange of the building and an appropriate lease for the operations going forward. Quite a few points have been generally agreed to. There are a few finer things that we still have to work through, and we've got another meeting booked in a month's time, or thereabouts, to finalise some of it. But we've progressed a lot further than what we were a few months ago.
Thank you. With the progressions of work, has it got a timeline when that's going to start?
Not at this stage. Nearly everything these days you can say is a 12-month build, and because that's up on upstairs, it probably is. But until we tick a few other boxes and our people work through the planning and then have conversations with architects and things like that, we really don't know the exact timeline. We are aware that it's very difficult to move on to the site until the end of the football season. And then we have to think about how the cricket and the football club will operate with their normal club activities in that time period, but that's things we can work through. And fortunately, we've got a new stadium and other facilities coming on board over there that will probably lessen the upheaval on the club. So those discussions are once we get through this first part.
Excellent. Thank you.
Through the chair, your discussions with residents about the traffic issues and the Telstra shop closing down, have you got any comments to make about that?
Yes, discussions is a polite word for some of the discussions that I had. The Telstra shop's an interesting one because it's almost impossible to get inside of an organisation like that. So I took the way of talking to some people I knew in federal politics to see if they could go to the Federal Minister of Communications, Paul Fletcher, to see if there was a method of madness for regional areas like us. And I thought, fair enough, closing down because of the sheer cost of operating the branch, but there may be other alternatives that are available. And I noticed up the East Coast about a month ago, Optus had a van that they were using at the smaller towns.
Yep.
I haven't heard much back on that at this point. The other thing I did was talk at the library, talk to the people who run the library here in Sorell. They have a couple of different things they do for citizens that I wasn't aware of. One was that 4 times a year they have a booking process for people, mainly more mature age people, to go in and work through with some IT experts they bring on board, and some young people as well. And they also are looking at resurrecting a system of some of the kids from the high school participating and helping, once again, mainly mature age people with their IT problems and phone issues at the library.
Right.
Also spoke with a local business owner about whether his business was able to take up some of the slack, and they're presently looking at various options for themselves there as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
But to get anything more concrete than that is almost impossible at the moment.
It's always busy, isn't it?
Yes, they understand the comment came back through other channels that they were struggling to make enough out of it to pay the wages. And when you think 9 out of 10 people going there want a fix for something, an app or a recharge problem, and it's not something they've been charging for or can charge for. So, and the Commission, even through the Telstra network, off back through their main contractors, so I think who own that store, like Telstra itself, is the commission on a phone sale is significantly low, and to get other agencies in here, it's awkward when you've got people like Harvey Norman, who are agents for Optus and others, controlling such a strong market share. So it's very awkward for a township like Sorell to have that sort of set up in place all the time. Not good, it's an essential service, because especially the elderly. The old joke of going after your 5-year-old grandchild how to fix something is still probably relevant, but sometimes there's a little more for that. So I've had to sit down and have a few talks with Mum about it as well, because she was a perfect example in our family of somebody who used that shop on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And what was the other part of that? You said about the Telstra shop and
The traffic issues.
Yeah, the traffic issues last week come to a head. What they've been doing last week and this week was meant to happen mid-December last year, but because of various issues and concerns from some nearby residents, they had to rechange or redesign some of the work being done. There was also some issues with phone cables and mainly water mains at both ends of the highway, both roundabouts. Their timing got thrown out. They've been trying to work between 9:30 and 3:34. They had some of their own issues last week, which blew that out. They had the option of pulling away and then doing it all virtually again the next day. They chose to continue with it and cause a bit of disruption for another 2.5 hours to prevent it dragging on indefinitely during the week. Today was obviously about getting the seal on both areas. I went for a tour of the whole network this morning, and it's quite cosmetic what they've got to do, except for merging the roundabouts, what they've got to do with some of these mains. So over the next month or two, we will probably have 4 or 5 switches, as in moving from one track to another track as they have to do a move in the main, swing us over another road to another bit of the main. But all the highway itself has only got to have 4 inches of, I suppose it's FCR, Russell, hot dressing and compaction before it's sealed. They've sealed, I think, both roundabouts today. They certainly were at it this morning. They finished pouring the concrete underneath the overpass for Robert Gould's driveway this morning, so that's finished off now. They've just got to gravel the top part of that. And most of the other things are starting to just be tidied up. They are still expected to be May and the opening being ready in June. If everything runs to plan, I don't see why it won't be. It's more just the mechanism of merging the roads in and doing away with the temporary roads and all that sort of thing.
Thank you.
I just I've seen a few photos of the surf club extensions on Facebook. How they look pretty good, but how's it?
Yes, all the rust has gone from the old balcony. It's made a huge difference just by moving out that, it's only about a metre along the front, but taking out on the balcony. They were largely finished with the inside and finishing off on architraves and skirtings a fortnight ago. There was some issues with just waiting for the timing of the lift to go in, but they have that all ready to go. I think just about everything else was, the rest was basically cosmetic. They have handed over their championships that were planned in a few weeks. I've lost track of weeks now to Clifton, and Clifton have given next year's championships back to Carlton Park as a sensible outcome, but they weren't going to rush it. They were, I think they were looking at March, April, as the opening sort of dates, and but looking very, very.
It's a great spot.
Oh, it's just beautiful. And the day I was down there, you couldn't ask for a better day out on the water, and it was just spectacular.
What's the cost of the extension?
I don't know, sorry. I'm feeling it was.
Something like $500,000.
It was about $500,000 because the government put in an extra $250 on top of what they had. They seem to have got a pretty good bang for their buck there, actually, for what they've achieved in making it a lot bigger. There's the function centre on the end, sort of about where the bar was, or just back further than that now. They've got a training room there, which can hold about 20, 25 people, and it also opens up and makes the main room bigger, so they've thought it through like they always do pretty well.
Can I just ask about car parking spaces then?
I would handle that to the general manager who's been down to have a look, and I don't think there's a real lot we can do there at this stage.
It's usually pretty crowded.
Yeah, sure, I mean, there's certainly desire from the club for council to make the parking area bigger. I met with the president there a few months ago about those sort of matters, and They're not, apart from some disabled spaces, they would prefer not for line marking to be provided. But yeah, in an ideal world, they'd like more parking, but it's easier said than done as far as getting consent to clear, because you have to go to the behind the club rooms.
Wouldn't that have been part of the DA for the extension? Wouldn't they have had to provide?
Oh, it would have formed part of the assessment, but I haven't seen the assessment. It was done quite a while ago, the DA.
The club is very complimentary towards the pathway that comes down through the car park now, and love that from a local point of view and being able to know where the people are walking a bit more. They, I think we're going to come back to council about a couple of issues with how the line marking has worked for up over the hill now, and where cars are parking to control that a little bit more on the crest of the hill. But overall, they were complimentary about the changes that have been made down there.
Thank you.
There's no other questions on my report. I'll put that to passing. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 6.0 supplementary items, which we're free of tonight. 7.0 is the council workshop reports. Everyone attended there. And 8.0 is the departmental reports. Can I have a move and second, please, for these bits? From Councillor Reid. And invite discussion, please. We have all our senior management here tonight, so questions galore can be asked, please. I think to open up the floor for discussion. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. On page 6, the approvals and permits, there's the last one is the boundary adjustment for McKinley Street. I understand that was done in unusual circumstances. If you have some understanding of how that came about, please.
Yeah, I'd have to
Was that
make
the
some
one?
inquiries about that. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, I might be getting them mixed up. I was thinking, oh yes,
That's-
okay.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
a
the,
different
it's
one.
not the DA, no.
It's not the deal. Okay, thank you.
Simply Mayor.
That's through the chair. Would you be able to provide an update on the sports stadium and how close we are for that opening? Or if there's any more issues?
Sorry.
I'll take it. So through me, there's plenty of issues to resolve with the contractor. We're probably closer to sorting out the flooring issue. We still have some structural steel issues to sort out, and we still have some sporting equipment issues to sort out as well. I don't know whether council is aware, but the major floor isn't being put down by Voss. It's actually subcontracted straight to us through our architect, which is probably lucky because most floors now are waiting 2 years for the timber to turn up. So we lock that in at the start of the contract. But we've got to get their main man contractor, so they've got to come in and do that job. And there's nothing stopping that we're aware of at the moment, subject to last week reading them doing that work, other than them being available. And the other two issues are more contractual issues between Voss, the architect, and ourselves. So if you want my honest opinion, internally we won't probably be finished until the end of April at this stage. And then externally we'll still have footpaths, stormwater, the car park will largely be done, but there'll be tidy up works because obviously you've got the netball courts being constructed at the moment as well on the other side.
And Mayor, will that cause any issues, with any pubs that were planning on using it? I think it's going to be ready earlier, or it's all just been?
Yes, as always, it's more the disappointment side of things because, it's a very exciting development for all clubs involved and a lot of youth looking forward to it. But council staff have been communicating with all those clubs as far as I'm aware. I certainly have been, and including people from Hobart, like the Chargers and that want to come down here. And this afternoon, a phone call from Anthony Stewart regarding a camp coming up in the next couple of weeks, and just they understand and they would much rather it be done everything as good as it can be than any shortcuts. So everybody's been extremely understanding.
Not much we can do about it.
Oh no, it's a normal building project where these things happen and best of intentions, issues arise and you have to work your way through.
Yeah, we could make it go much quicker if you're prepared to pay all the money that the contractor wants, but that's not my brief.
Steph, I noticed that we slipped backwards on our rates collection to exactly the same as last year. We had been running about half a percent in front. Still very good in the circumstances.
Yeah, I did notice that as well. It's exactly the same. It's still a really positive result.
Yes.
And we're tracking along nicely. And with Ellie has taken over in the senior rates position this year, and she's doing a fantastic job with all the debt collection and all of those processes. So yeah, it's going really well still. We're happy.
Excellent.
Can I just following on that, from that, then our new rate system, then it's been okay.
Yes, so through the mayor, we haven't had any major issues with the new rates restructure, so that's been fantastic. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes. There's no other questions on the
Sorry, through the mayor, I've got one more quick question, which is page 32. Just ask Jess, I think, probably the Constance Ari and the Arts Tasmania grant. Just where is that at, and what can we look forward to?
Constance Ari met with us last week with Sonia and I. They're in the process of engaging with the artists that will be hopefully engaged in the municipality to have their artworks displayed prior to the end of the financial year.
With that, I shall put the motion for acceptance of the managerial reports. All those in favour? Thank you. Passed unanimously. 9.0, we have no petitions before us at the moment. Land use planning, the Mayor advised in accordance with provisions of Part 2 Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulations 2015, the intention of the Council to act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act of 1993 is to be noted. In accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 10 on this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. 10.1, move and second of the minutes from the 1st of February 22, please. Councillor Nichols, thank you, and Councillor Stranius, thanks very much. Any discussion on those minutes? Thank you. I shall put the motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. Governance, new reports, engineering, new reports. 13.1 is the community grants program. Thank you, Councillor. No, move and second, please, for discussion. Councillor Trinas and Councillor Reid, thank you very much. Open the floor up to discussion for Sorell Cricket Club.
Through the chair, so just to make it clear, this was a grant called the Frog Box, wasn't it, which is to video record the game during play?
Correct, that's correct, yes, it is.
Yeah, so just looking at the strategic plan to ensure livable and inclusive community, encourage and support local arts, cultural activities, programs and events. Just yeah, not sure where that sort of fits in. I haven't got the application in front of me, so.
Yes, the club was of the opinion that it would lift them to a new level of professionalism in being able to telecast their games using it. Must admit I had some concerns regarding that it was only for one club, so I had Sonia ask about the ability to use it for other sports as well. Along the lines of being able to promote other things at Pembroke Park, but it is very much limited to cricket with scoring methods and everything else. And I was probably a little bit reserved myself because it is a fair bit of money to go for something that's of an individual item of a club like that and not for the greater benefit of things over there. So I was a little bit reserved once I found out it couldn't be used for other sports.
Can we expect other applications from other groups?
Don't know. I don't know how it applied to other clubs, but certainly netball is becoming more and more of a telecast sport these days. Football, they do have a network that goes around now that films some of the games, but that's done separately. But I would imagine for this sort of technology now will broaden pretty quickly, and every club will be thinking about how they could give greater exposure. At this point in time, it's only the sport. Yeah.
Going back to your point about our purpose, Deputy Mayor, I think it does serve that purpose of connecting the community, because it allows people who can't go to cricket or watch the cricket normally to be involved. So, and it's the way things are going more and more. So it's got that sort of ability to include more people. I'm just not very familiar with the way it's used.
Neither am I. And I just, as you were making those comments, I was just thinking about, in relation to the function centre that may be built over the next couple of years, of how it works in off the height of that down onto both cricket grounds. But I really don't know how or where it's positioned. You think it would have to have a bit of height definition to it to be effective. Raised another question of, is it movable for both grounds? So you can swing between games, or is it something that is just set up on one oval? Not sure on that.
Actually, that is a good question you raised, because we don't want to get vandalised either. So I'm sure you'll be able to move them and set them up for each game. And from what I've seen online, you have to set them up in line with the pitch always. There will be some of those from the club rooms.
Different view depending on the umpire and what nationality you go.
Yeah, that's right.
Third umpire position, yeah. Look, we can always go back and find out more information, but this is for us at the moment as it is.
Through the chair, it might be nice to have some sort of a demonstration of it, so I've got a bit of an idea of how the thing works. And
yes, if you do Google frog box, it does give you a good example of working demonstration of the product.
It's pretty much just a live stream.
Yeah.
Facilities, stationary, but it's just a live
so
stream.
you have to have an app to use it.
I have no idea.
What's it called?
Yeah, why is it called Frogbox?
Because it's in a green box, I would imagine.
You're not the first to answer that, and a green box is the first time I've heard that reason. But, I guess there's two options, or there's three options: for, against, or allowed on the table. To seek more information.
Laying it on the
Lay
table.
it lay it on the table.
Yes.
Yes. So somebody like to,
Yes, I'll make to lay it on the table, so we.
Councillor Reid, and I have a second one, Councillor, hang on a second,
Did I?
no, same people would be able to move.
Oh, we,
Councillor Therese.
I moved.
and so did I think.
Seconded, so you're
So I
happy to
can
move.
move to, yeah.
I'll second it.
And Deputy Mayor seconded.
Yeah.
I shall put that amendment to, on the table to vote, all those in favour? Thank you, and, we shall seek some more information.
Perhaps if you could, send through what information you'd like.
Yes.
So, if you can reply to Sonia's email, with the application, where she saw your questions on it, then we can follow through with him.
We have had the workshop as well.
Yes.
Yeah, if we have the questions prior, otherwise we'll get to the workshop and we won't have the,
And the answers, so that's where it's important to respond to those emails. We did find out some of those questions, but obviously more got raised this evening, so. Thank you. 13.2 is Pembroke Park Stadium fees and charges. Oh, sorry, got to take Councillor Jackson out there. Thank you, Russell.
Go.
Otherwise, kept going with that. 13.2, Pembroke Park Stadium fees and charges, moving sector. Councillor Jackson and Deputy Mayor, thank you. Invite any questions, we direct you, Jess, on any of these, if they have any queries, but as per our discussions at our workshop. And just to clarify, starting point, reviewed again with the budget and anything else, so we're talking about quite a small time frame at this stage. We get a full understanding and appreciation of things. Thank you.
that's right.
Through the chair, well done, Jess, on doing this, or Anthony. Sorry, giving you the credit. The gym, 60 square metre lease per annum, $15,450. That's not the main basketball, like the main part of the gym, is it? That's
No, that's the gym, yeah, the actual.
So would that be like a permanent tenancy where they would just use it outright for that year?
And that's what we put the expression of interest out.
Yeah. Is there the option to take multiple year? I'm just thinking if an organisation wants to come in, they probably want to secure over more than just 1 year.
Yes.
That's an option.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all.
Councillor Jackson.
Through now, I just want to check, so that's all great, obviously for the organised sports, but I just want to check the 2 courts, netball, basketball that we're building outside, that they will still be able to be accessed by the members of the community, and basically they'll be free of charge, there won't be a charge to hire those just for a community shoot around or, getting together for, not organised pickup games.
For non-organised activities, so if you just go down on the weekend with your family,
Yeah.
then there won't be a charge.
Yeah.
But for organisations, if the netball club is using it or a basketball club, then they will be charged and will need their insurance. So.
Yes.
And you'll be able to see that in the roster where it is.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. It's also part of the discussions, which is way off with the tennis also, for there to be outside, they call them hot shot courts.
Mm.
And that is to increase participation outside the main organised events, so that mums, dads and kids can get down and still have a bit of fun, enjoyment, and see if they're going to take the sport up properly.
And everyone probably received the feedback from leaving that extra cricket net open, so thank you for that. That's been pretty positive already. A lot of parents are using those, and so thank you.
Increased usage, all is spread. Thank you. There's nothing else on those user fees. I shall put the motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Finance at 14.1, financial report for January 2022. Move, thank you. Councillor Nichols and seconded by Councillor Reid. Invite any comments? Still in a positive way, a few ups and downs and all around, but still too close. Can I ask a question probably to either Robert or Russell on the caravan licences? There was this change in the bylaws a while back, wasn't there? I thought there might have been an increase in licences with everybody in a COVID situation, utilising that sort of thing, but it seems to be one area that's down a bit.
Yeah, I think with our limited compliance staff, what you really need to go is to check out those and make sure that that's what's actually going on, which they've done a little bit of, but perhaps amongst fire abatements and various other things, that's been their priority at this stage. But I mean, we do need to chase up those that had them versus those that haven't renewed them. Then it's the same issue with dog registrations. We need to have some process of following them up.
Yeah. Sometimes that knock on the door is more than appropriate. Yes.
Yeah, I noticed the state grants have advertised that they're coming about. Are we expecting any extra increases within that, or is it just likely to be a CPIA across the board type setup? Was there anything council specific?
As in the allocation from the state grants commission?
Yeah.
No, I'm not expecting any miracles to occur. They're doing another set of reviews of various cost adjusters, but they're like 2 to 3 year period before they actually take effect. I've heard nothing that would indicate we're going to get some sort of early Christmas present.
It could go up a bit or it could go down a bit really at this stage, depending on where they land the definitions.
Yes. And you'll quite often see in the local government focus magazine, where the newspaper, where the national body is one of their main priorities to try and make sure that the federal grants keep up with inflation at least. And they're very conscious that a few years back they weren't. So it's a pretty regular amount of political lobbying goes on into that area, but we haven't seen any great adjustments for quite some time there.
But the other states have different, the way that bridges and roads are assessed, they're not the same state by state.
Yeah.
But our group have said that whilst they're prepared to look at some tweaks, the basic principles of what they've adopted for local government in Tasmania will remain unchanged. So then this gets down to definitions of hierarchy and those sorts of things for the swings and roundabouts.
Every council's in the same boat with it being a fairly important part of their budgeting process, so it's a fairly highly focused area. Thank you. If there's no other questions on the...
Could I just ask, Russell, refresh my memory, where the Rotary bus shelters are going? There's 2, I believe.
Yeah, they're both in Southern Beaches. I think there's one on Old Forsyth Road and the other is down Cutton area, I think, but I can confirm that for you.
That's all right. No, I just had a compliment about them today. So
Yeah, they've certainly purchased the steel work. We've got to get the slabs poured and then we'll get them built.
No, they're working well. And not, most of them not graffiti.
Yeah.
Most of them.
There's nothing more. I shall put the financials for January 22 to be accepted. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 14.2 is the mid-year budget review. Move, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much. And the seconder, Councillor Trenius, thank you. Congratulate our officers on quite a substantial effort on this, with the enormous rise in costs of many projects and the total upheaval that is the art of today of tendering for things. It's almost impossible to get it spot on. And, yes, we've had our ups and downs with tenders, but, to stay so close to the market overall, I think it's a pretty big effort, so well done. And ask councillors for any, comments on the review budget review, please.
Steph, we've had a savings of 20,000 on public liability insurance.
Yes, through the mayor. So that's based on actuals, and it's just because they changed our insurance map, changed the formula for how they calculate the insurance, and Sorell Council just happened to be on the lucky side of that and got a decrease of 10%. So I think we budgeted for an increase of 10% and then we got a decrease. So yeah, it worked in our favour this year.
A surprise.
Yes.
It doesn't happen too many times.
No.
Thank you. If there's nothing more, I shall put that for acceptance. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. 14.3 is the long-term financial plan. I'll move to the second. Thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you, and Councillor Mitchell, thanks very much, and I open up the floor for discussions regarding the long-term financial plan. I find this a little bit of a work in art because of the amount of capital projects that we've had over the last few years and what we've got coming up over the next year, and how it directly relates to our long-term position. I think a lot of other councils probably wish they had the accuracy that we've been starting to get into our figures. It's changing field all the time with different revaluations and everything else, but overall it's giving us a much stronger tool to use. Councillor Jackson.
Through there, has the depreciation side of it all been accounted for now with the costs of, like the assumed costs of the stadium and depreciation going forward on all those, or are they, once they're completed, they get added and, yeah, okay.
We've made through there, we made some pretty high level assumptions when we did this. The start of this financial year, but it hasn't, it was assumptions on just the raw, sort of course level cost of the building hasn't been componentised, which is where you get the actual accurate depreciation schedules out of it.
Through the mayor. So with the Pembroke Park Stadium in the budget, we've budgeted for 3 months of that through the current mid-year budget review. And then the mid-year budget review takes, for ongoing years, actually does include the depreciation for Pembroke Park Stadium. So it takes the spend we're expecting in new, and then it factors that into the long-term financial plan. So it is factored in, but it might not be 100% accurate based on what the actual spend is at the end of the project. But it does take what we're expecting the stadium to cost us and then depreciates it going forward.
And we're due to do the long-term financial strategy, which will probably have a bit more detail around some of those things.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for that, Steph. If there's no other comments, I shall put that motion for acceptance. All those in favour? Unanimously, thank you. 15.0 is questions on notice, and the answer there to Sharon Fothingham's question as responses there and listed. And if we move to 15.1, questions from the public. Right. Questions from the gallery, please.
Just in relation to Telstra, I didn't know the shop was shut in, so I saw this. But for January, that my landline phone, because I live in the Black Swamp area, as do most people in Portsmouth, mobiles only work spasmodically. Landlines are very rarely working properly. As I said, my landline was down for the whole of January. Internet can only be obtained by a satellite. So it would be nice if the council took it on board for everyone in this area. I've heard what you said, that they're virtually impossible to contact or get anything done. But I did take it to the telecommunications ombudsman and was told that they have no power over Telstra. Telstra bloody well do, pardon my French, do what they like. And the technicians tell me that the Dodgers Ferry Exchange is not up to scratch by today's standards. They don't want people on landlines. And it's not a real good situation. So I just wanted the council to be aware of it.
Thank you, Sharon. We do have a little bit of contact with the Minister for this. He's been a semi-regular visitor to our municipality over the last 6 or 7 years. They are working to eliminate more and more black spots. Each year they put some money towards that in general, especially down the peninsula and the lower east coast that are in our region that I'm aware of. There's more money coming up. I know both federal candidates have been spoken to about the numerous black spots up and down the peninsula. So that does give us a point of contact. Some residents have asked us to financially assist Telstra in staying in the municipality, but I had to ask the question of them, do they want us to do the same for Optus, Vodafone and every other telecommunication company around as well. It is an awkward one. It is very much noisy voices with the federal election coming up that might see some of that fixed in the future, Sharon. So I suggest that you keep talking to your federal candidates about it.
On one occasion, they couldn't even give me a diversion to a mobile. It just wasn't working. So I had absolutely no communication. So for the people in Forsyth, it's a wicked situation. It's probably worse than anywhere else.
I can confirm that because our business was out for a month without phone line. So we had no card situation at all, and we just had to get bank details from people.
Very sad.
It was, sorry.
No, thank you for confirming it. And I'd just like to say, regards to traffic, I've had a horrendous time in the last week, 2 weeks with traffic. I'm pleased other people have brought it to your notice. It took me 1 3/4 hours to get from the airport to home, which is normally only a 20-minute journey. I got stuck at the airport. I got stuck at Midway. Traffic today was right across the causeway because of delays at Midway. Then I got to the industrial end of the bypass and I was there for another 40 minutes. It's really horrendous.
Yeah, there's very good reasons for it, and most of that's been taken care of today and probably a little bit tomorrow. But we said at the start of all this road program that that'd be a little bit of pain, and a couple of days last week and today was certainly one of those. So significant again at the moment that now school's back, the amount of traffic is built up to proportions that it was last year, and we forget over January just what happens when school goes back, but it certainly rattled everybody in the last few days.
Yeah, we have said to them their communication and their visual boards need to reflect if they're going to have one of those days so people can at least be aware, which I don't think they did out this way.
No, if I'd known I could have gone around the back of Sorell, but
Yeah.
you get past the only turn off to go around the back before you know.
But like the Mayor said, I think they made a decision on the day to change their approach, and therefore it was all null and void for intents and purposes.
Yes, and they do communicate the contractor for the traffic management is a separate contractor, and I think there might have been some discussions to say we didn't get this right, we need to do it differently. And,
yeah, I think there's going to be delays, but I think the community would be good if they've got some forward planning that there's going to be those delays.
I mean, we've had a really bad time of it. We've had this for 6 months, so you were hoping that they could have planned it a bit better, but I've heard what you said. Community out there, including me, is getting, pardon the expression, really pissed off. We hope something at the end had better be good.
yes, let's hope so, and certainly it's coming on quite well, but you also have to think of many of the businesses, several businesses have been dramatically affected in their turnover, and with their staffing levels and everything else, so that there has been a lot of communication happening.
Thank you. Right, also, Sharon and I complaining about Telstra. The other problem I see was that Centrelink was closed down a while ago. And I believe business is important for the area. I'm under the understanding that Sorell and the surrounding areas is a growing area. So surely these two facilities should be part of the community. No?
The federal government have withdrawn from most regional areas, and IT makes it easier for them to do that these days, more so than when they did it quite a few years ago. Telstra, like we all know, there's very little impact or influence on that. We do spend a lot of time through our membership of CERTA lobbying businesses to come down this way. I think Cambridge will be the likely location for a lot of the bigger box and some of the other sorts of business in the near future because of the sheer size of it. When you think about Sorell itself, yes, we are growing, but we are only about 15,000 people. We are not at that level to be able to demand a presence. Those businesses that do set up in Sorell normally do quite well because of us being the heart of the southeast, but no matter whether it's state, federal or local government, we can't influence private businesses. We can only do the best we can in advocating, and I can give you my guarantee that we do that on a fairly strong basis.
The other question, in my naivety, I actually thought councillors did it out of love of their community. So with the money that's been paid to someone who doesn't turn up, does it come out of my pocket? In my taxes? The other question I have is Norfolk, the Durham Valley Council, they dismissed one of their councillors who missed three meetings. So if somebody misses how many? 12 meetings in a year, is that money that's going out of my pocket?
Just yes, it can be as a ratepayer, and it is part of the overall budget. It's an allowance, not a salary or income. A bit about the 3 meetings is in legislation or regulation through the Local Government Act, and that states if you do not attend 3 meetings without an apology or a leave of absence in place, that you are automatically dismissed from council, I suppose is the right word to use. But at this point in time, the councillors are referring to the ones here at Sorell within the comply with all the regulations that are in place at the moment.
So all they have to do is say, sorry, I can't be here.
It's a little bit more than that.
Just curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
It is covered, and because of a lot of focus and some of the time involved, the General Manager has made sure that all regulations and compliance have been met. No worries. Thank you very much for your attendance. We need to move into close now, and thank you for your time and your questions. We're coming along.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.